For years, people have been talking about Charlton H., the famous actor who played important parts in movies like The Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur, but now his daughter Frasier H. has proven what many people have thought for a long time. In an honest interview, Frasier tells the truth about her father's problems and scandals, giving us a look at the real man behind the myth. But what did Charlton keep from people, and how did those things affect his life and legacy? Come with us as we figure out what Frasier H. meant when he said that. The quiet boy who became Charlton H. was born on October 4, 1923, as John Charles Carter. He grew up in Cook County, Illinois, and was never loud. His home in Salem, Michigan was close to woods and lakes, so he spent his childhood outdoors. The building business was his dad's job, and Charlton loved to fish, hunt, and explore the woods, where he let his imagination run wild. It wasn't always easy for him to remember things like addresses. One thing, though, the quiet boy who grew up in the woods never forgot. He loved making up stories. His parents split up when he was 10 years old, and the family moved to Wilmette, which is near Chicago. His love for make-believe never changed. Even as things changed around him, his life changed when his mother married Chester H. He and his brothers started using their stepfather's last name and started a new part of their lives. While he was at New Trier High School, Charlton found that he loved being in plays. His friends seemed more sure of themselves and had more life experience, but he was more interested in sharing stories and performing on stage. He became more interested in theater after getting a part in a 1941 small movie based on Peer Gynt. Even though the movie didn't do very well, it was the beginning of something bigger for Charlton. Charlton got a scholarship to Northwestern University to study theater, where he mostly studied acting. He continued to work with skilled teachers and perform in neighborhood theater. Besides that, he worked with the same director again, this time as Mark Anthony in Julius Caesar, which showed off his early acting skills and charm. They were both students at Northwestern University when they got married in 1944. Her name was Lydia Marie Clark. He joined the U.S. Army Air Forces around the same time. During World War II, he was sent to the remote Aleutian Islands in Alaska and worked as a radio operator and shooter on planes. People knew he would do what they said he would do, so he worked hard and finally became a staff sergeant. Charlton worked on his job after the war. People asked him to narrate secret movies for the government about nuclear safety because they trusted his voice and appearance. He had the top level of security clearance, which is not often given. It didn't matter what changed around the boy who used to tell stories to himself in the forest. His name stayed the same. Because he loved telling stories so much, he went from the woods in Michigan to many stages, screens, and even the sky. But how did Heston become the famous figure we know today? What problems did he have to deal with, and how did they affect his path? Charlton H., the person who made the story possible. After the war, Charlton H. and Lydia moved to New York City's Hell's Kitchen. They were young and very interested in playing. To make money, they posed for artists as models for works that showed off their unique looks. But they wanted more and wanted to make a name for themselves in the stage world. They chose to move to Asheville, North Carolina in 1947 and took over a small theater there. They only got $100 a week, but the experience helped them become better workers, even though the pay was low. The Hest came back to New York City after a year. They took a big step forward with this choice. There was a Broadway show of Anthony and Cleopatra with the famous Katharine Cornell as the lead. Charlton had a supporting part. He was excited about the part and soon started guest starring on the hit TV show Studio One. He became well known by regularly appearing on TV. His movie role as Mark Anthony in Julius Caesar came out in 1949. This project didn't get much attention, but it showed how dedicated he was to playing dramatic parts. A Hollywood director named Hal Wallace became interested in Charlton in 1950 while he was acting on a TV show based on Wuthering Heights. Wallace thought H had something special about him and offered him a job in movies. Charlton and Lydia, his wife, had planned to focus on theater and TV at first. But they changed their minds and chose to try movies instead. They were going to make one movie. Charlton H. got his first lead part in the movie Dark City when he was 26 years old. Soon after, Cecil B. Dale, the director, picked him to play a circus boss in The Greatest Show on Earth. The Academy Award for Best Picture went to this movie in 1952 because it was so popular. It was also the year's most watched movie. This made H's performing career take off very quickly. Over the next few years, he played many different roles, including a frontiersman in The Savage, Andrew Jackson in The President's Lady, and Buffalo Bill in Pony Express. He was also in Arrowhead, which shows that he likes Western movies. In 1953, he didn't get a big part in Stalag 117, but he kept busy by being in Bad for Each Other with Elizabeth Scott. After that, he played a part in The Naked Jungle, in which he fought a swarm of ants, in The Secret of the Incas, which was filmed at Machu. Scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark were influenced by this movie, which was full of action and ancient secrets. In Far Horizons, he played William Clark, who went traveling with Fred McMurray's character Lewis. In the comedy The Private War of Major Benson, he also tried his hand at acting. Jane Wyman and Lucy Gallant were in the movie with him. Because he thought Charlton H. looked a lot like Michelangelo's statue of Moses, Cecil B. Dale cast him as Moses in The Ten Commandments in 1956. The movie was a big hit, and H. became famous for playing Moses. Even Han's son played Little Moses in the movie. With this part, H. went from being a rising star to a name everyone knew. He worked with famous directors and stars in Three Violent People over and over. His only condition for agreeing to be in Touch of Evil was that Orson Welles directed. The movie was a huge hit. He played Andrew Jackson again in The Buccaneer and had a small part in The Big Country. There was a big deal about the movie Bencher in Charlton H. wasn't initially considered for the lead part, but he took it and did a great job with it. 11 Academy Awards were given to the movie, and H. got Best Actor. It was a very well-liked and recognized movie in Hollywood. Charlton became known as the face of great stories to many people. What H. did, though, was not let his success make him lazy. Instead of taking a part with Marilyn Monroe, he decided to be in a play that Laurence Olivier was directing. The play didn't do well, but he was proud of the experience he got by working closely with someone he looked up to. During his lifetime, he went back to the theater a lot and performed in Shakespeare plays in many places. He played parts like Macbeth, Mark Antony, and Sir Thomas. H. really liked being in A Man for All Seasons, which he did in London's West End, and then in Aberdeen, Scotland. He played the lead role in the 1963 hit movie El Cid, which was shot in Spain. After that, he was in a mix of war movies and comedies, such as Diamond Head and The Pigeon That Took Rome. In The Greatest Story Ever Told, H. played John the Baptist. In The Agony and the Ecstasy, he played Michelangelo. And in Major Dundee, he played a proud military leader. Some of these movies didn't do very well at the box office, but H. worked hard in every part he played. From 1965 to 1971, he was head of the Screen Actors Guild, and his main goal was to make things better for actors. His political views were more traditional than those of his co-workers, but he stuck to them and treated everyone with respect. In the late 1960s, he was in movies like Counterpoint and Will Penny. He really liked Will Penny, even though it didn't make him a lot of money. Planet of the Apes, which came out in 1968 and was a big hit, was his first science fiction movie. He also made a follow-up called Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Even though some projects, like the Hawaiians, didn't go as planned, he kept working on new things. He went back to Shakespeare and made another version of Julius Caesar. This time, Jason Roarts and Diana Rigg were in it with him. In The Omega Man, which got a lot of fans, he wrote about post-apocalyptic thoughts. He gave Antony and Cleopatra his full attention and directed and appeared in it in 1972. It was a very important project to him. Even though reviewers didn't like the movie, H. was still proud of it. First Skyjacked did well for him. Then, Silent Green, The Three Musketeers, and the disaster movies, Earthquake and Airport 1975, did even better. Each movie showed how good he was at keeping people interested with stories of survival, drama, or mystery. By the end of the 1970s, he was becoming less famous at the box office. Not as well were movies like 2 Minute Warning, The Last Hard Men, and Grey Lady Down. On the other hand, H. already had a good name in the movie business. H. became famous, but he still had to deal with trouble and criticism from his co-stars. What Charlton H. had to deal with in friendship and in movies. In the movie business, Charlton H. was admired for his skill, his captivating screen charisma, and his dedication to each role he played. He was in a lot of famous movies and was known as one of Hollywood's most important leading stars. But like many artists who were famous for a long time, things weren't always great when they weren't on camera. People respected how hard he worked, but he did sometimes get into fights with other famous people. One time this happened was when he co-starred in El Cid with the famous Italian actress Sophia Loren. The movie El Cid was a big tale with powerful scenes and feeling. H. played a brave Spanish hero, and Loren played his love interest. People thought the movie was well made and exciting. But there were problems between the two main players behind the scenes. A lack of warmth in the connection between H. and Loren was noticed by everyone working on the set, which made tensions clear. The problems they had with each other were mostly caused by their lack of imagination. They were both very dedicated to their jobs and had strong opinions on how their roles should be hailed. H was known for doing a lot of research to get ready for his roles. He would look into the pasts of his characters and think about how they would feel and act. Lauren also brought strong feelings and her own style to the parts she played. It can be hard to find a middle ground when two strong personalities meet. This really did happen on the set of Elsa. Each actor had a different take on the story, which caused problems in their working relationship. Some scenes took longer to film than planned because of differences. And actors weren't always in sync during scenes between characters, so they had to be filmed more than once. Even though H and Lauren didn't get along off camera, they were committed to their work and gave it their all on set. H was known for being able to stay focused on what he was doing even when there were other things going on around him. H had been through tough times like these before. He worked with many different directors, managers, and co-stars over the years, and each had their own way of doing things. Some sets were nice and easy to follow, while others were more disorganized. H was always known for being polite, no matter where. He put his all into every scene and worked hard to give powerful performances on TV. A lot of H's coworkers liked how active he was on set. He could be counted on, was always ready, and gave it his all. He stood out in a field where not everyone was as committed because of how hard he worked. H stayed focused on the job at hand even when there were disagreements or fights. He knew that making a movie needed everyone to work together, and he valued the contributions of everyone, from the director to the people who ran the cameras. After El Cid, H was in a number of well-known movies. He played kings, warriors, explorers, and just normal people. He showed a strong sense of determination in every job. Even though he had some problems with other people in his work, they weren't the most important thing. They were just things that got in the way, showing that even the best actors have bad days and that working together can be hard sometimes. On the other hand, the problems did not stop there. H also got into a lot of trouble, which hurt his business. Charlton Heston, a star who was pulled between fame and trouble. Charles H was a Hollywood star who was known for having a strong demeanor, a deep voice, and a strong personality. He wasn't just an actor, he was also very active in American politics. Many people were surprised and interested by how his views changed, which caused strong feelings in many groups. Ong's life was interesting because it showed how American politics have changed over time. In the 1960s, Charlton H was known for working hard for leftist causes. He stood with civil rights leaders in the fight for race equality in the country. H did not only talk about these things. He took an active role in significant events. During the 1963 March on Washington, he walked with Martin Luther King Jr., which is a famous picture from that time. Many people saw hope in this scene, where a famous white actor stood with black campaigners for justice. It was clear that H really cared about making sure that all Americans were treated equally and fairly. By the 1980s and 1990s, though, things were different. H began to agree with more traditional ideas than he did when he was younger. This change made a lot of people who thought he supported liberal ideas mad. People who used to look up to him for his civil rights work now asked him why he had changed so much. This change was also seen in Hollywood. The movie business, which was mostly liberal, stopped accepting him as much. People used to think his ideas were brave and new, but now they made him stand out in a bad way. In his later years, Charlton H's involvement in the gun rights fight was one of the most important events. He became head of the National Rifle Association (NRA), a powerful political group in the United States, and people saw H as a strong supporter of the Second Amendment because he was the head of the NRA. His voice, which you may know from movies, could be heard in conference rooms as he spoke passionately in favor of gun ownership. The line "from my cold dead hands," which was said with passion, became famous. For his fans, it was a strong statement of freedom. Some people, though, found it disturbing, especially since there is a lot of gun crime in the country. After the terrible school shooting in Colorado in 1999, H's support for gun rights became more controversial. Not long after the tragedy, the NRA held its annual meeting close to where the shots were fired. A lot of people were upset that H showed up and spoke at the event. A lot of people thought the timing was off, and his presence only made things worse. Gun rights were already being talked about very strongly, but H's appearance made it more emotional. People who used to admire him for being brave during the civil rights movement had lost respect for him because they thought he didn't care about other people. After Michael Moore's documentary Bowling for Columbine came out in 2000, the movie looked into why there is so much gun crime in the U.S. and had an interview with H. Moore went to see H at his house, which caused a stir. Some people thought Moore took advantage of H, especially since the star was sick at the time. A lot of people thought the movie's portrayal of H was unfair and upsetting. However, it made people talk about gun rights and media ethics in a whole new way. H was once again in the middle of a debate, but this time people had more different thoughts about it. As time went on, more and more people started to say bad things about Charlton H. Some people began to wonder if his support for civil rights in the past was at odds with his more recent support for gun rights, especially his membership in the NRA. People had said that the NRA's policies seemed to be biased against minority groups. This made people think again about H's impact. Did his changing views show how his values were changing? Or was it just a planned move for political or public relations reasons? There are no easy answers to these questions, and they still affect how people think about his impact today. And because of his ideas, Hollywood, H was seen as a one-of-a-kind. As an actor, he was always admired for the memorable roles he played and the way they changed the course of film history. But his political views made things difficult with many of his co-workers. Some people praised how honest he was, while others stayed away from him. He didn't always fit in well with the business he had worked in for years. He stuck to his beliefs, even though they got him in trouble and missed chances. H also gave speeches that called into question ideas that most people agree on, like affirmative action, diversity, and political correctness. There were people who saw him as a strong supporter of traditional ideals in a world that was changing quickly, but some people saw what he said as an attack on progress and variety. These speeches made him even more well-known as a major figure in the culture conflicts. A person who strongly believed in certain traditional ideals, even though times were changing. But what kind of man was H when he wasn't in the open? Also, what did his daughter say about him? The family man who works behind the scenes. In movies, Charlton H was known for having a strong voice and being a strong character. The rest of the time he was just a husband, a father, and someone who loved his family very much. Instead of being glamorous, his personal life was marked by kindness, patience, and unwavering stability. Lydia Clark and H were married for 64 years. They were happy together and loved each other. They met before he was famous, and she helped him with his job. This made their relationship very unusual in the world of movies and fame. Their friendship was built on trust, fun, and shared values, and it stayed strong even when they became in their life together. They understood each other well, and their love for each other was clear at all times. Their marriage thrived on everyday, private times rather than public ones. They liked taking walks in the morning, writing notes by hand, and being at home. Lydia helped H feel stable and supported. They were good for each other, which made their bond strong and long-lasting. Lydia gave H peace and focus, while he was working hard at his job. He appreciated her quiet support and often put her first when making decisions. H got a new job at home that had nothing to do with acting or being on camera. He was there for his kids, spent time with them, and paid attention to what they had to say. His kids don't remember him as a popular person. They remember him as someone who cared about their daily lives, their thoughts, and their happiness. They never thought his job was more important than them. He was just dad to them, not Charlton H. the star.